the Cosmic Silence Conundrum. Among the countless stars in the universe, many are accompanied by their own planetary systems. Some of these planets might even resemble Earth. On one of these distant worlds, there could be beings gazing at their sky in wonder, just as you might be doing now. Yet, despite this immense potential for life scattered across the cosmos, a haunting question arises, creeping in like an unexpected thought during a quiet game of chess. Why haven't we heard from anyone? This puzzling absence, this disquieting stillness echoing across the stars, is what's referred to as the Fermi paradox. The term comes from physicist Enrico Fermi, who during a seemingly ordinary lunch in 1950 casually posed a profound question: where is everybody? Though simple on the surface, this inquiry digs as deep as the fabric of the universe itself. The Fermi paradox isn't merely about a lack of UFO sightings or green-skinned aliens waving from spaceships. It's about making sense of the contradiction between the high probability of extraterrestrial civilizations and the absolute quiet we seem to experience. Let's break it down. The paradox is based on several core ideas. First, that the universe is almost unimaginably enormous. Second, that within such a vast cosmic expanse, intelligent life should logically exist elsewhere, given the sheer number of stars and planets and the immense age of the universe. It seems statistically inevitable that other intelligent beings should have emerged. And if some of these civilizations have had millions or even billions of years to evolve, they could have surpassed our technological level by light years. They might already be capable of interstellar communication or even travel. So why the silence? One explanation might be something scientists call the Great Filter. Think of it as a series of monumental challenges, obstacles that most life forms fail to overcome on the path from simple organisms to advanced spacefaring societies. This great filter could be something that's already behind us. Perhaps life is exceptionally rare to begin with, or the emergence of complex, multicellular organisms is highly improbable. If that's true, then maybe we've already passed the hardest step, and our journey toward contact with other civilizations is still unfolding. But there's a more unsettling possibility. What if the great filter still lies ahead? Perhaps intelligent societies, no matter how advanced, are doomed to destroy themselves through warfare, environmental collapse, or unavoidable cosmic catastrophes. If this is the case, then the eerie silence may not be a puzzle at all. It might be a warning. Another perspective suggests that alien civilizations are intentionally quiet. They may deliberately avoid revealing themselves, hoping to remain unnoticed, or choosing to observe less advanced beings without interference, like placing Earth in a galactic wildlife preserve. This concept, known as the zoo hypothesis, imagines that advanced species might see us as interesting yet primitive. Worth observing? Yes. Worth contacting directly? Maybe not yet. So they watch from afar, allowing our civilization to grow without interruption. There's also the chance that we're simply using the wrong tools to find them, or looking in the wrong way. It's like trying to tune into a radio station, but being on the wrong frequency altogether. Alien civilizations might be using communication methods that are so advanced we can't even recognize them. It's like mailing a letter to someone who only uses encrypted digital messages. We might not even know the messages exist. It's possible signals are being exchanged across the stars constantly, but we lack the knowledge or technology to perceive them. And then there's the sobering notion that we might truly be alone. This line of thinking is known as the rare Earth hypothesis. It suggests that the perfect conditions that allowed life to flourish here on Earth are incredibly unique, perhaps unmatched anywhere else in the universe. If this is true, then our existence is not just rare, it's a cosmic miracle. To reflect on the Fermi paradox is to go beyond searching for alien life. It's a deeper quest, one that asks where we fit in the grand story of everything. Are we simply one of many intelligent civilizations civilizations scattered throughout the galaxy, or are we the only ones capable of telling the universe's tale? The Fermi paradox doesn't provide definite answers. Instead, it invites us to ask larger, more profound questions, ones as deep and limitless as the night sky itself. It encourages us to rethink what we assume, to embrace the mystery, and to look up with curiosity, and maybe a touch of awe. The orbital perspective shift. Amid the endless expanse of the cosmos, surrounded by the quiet blackness of space, you look down upon the vibrant swirl of blues and greens that make up our planet. In that breathtaking moment, all distinctions fade away. No borders, no nations, no separations, just one unified world drifting through the boundless void. This powerful transformation in awareness is known as the orbital perspective shift, a profound and often life-altering realization reported by space travelers who have viewed Earth from orbit. It's more than being awestruck by the view. It's a deep inner change that reshapes how one sees humanity, nature, and even reality itself. Astronauts who go through this shift often speak of an intense emotional connection to Earth, a deep recognition that all living beings and ecosystems are part of a singular, delicate system. But what triggers such a profound change? And why does seeing Earth from beyond its surface leave such a lasting impression? To answer those questions, let's delve into the nature of the orbital perspective shift and uncover the meaningful insights it offers about how we live and relate to our planet. The term overview effect was first introduced by space philosopher Frank White in the 1980s. Through interviews with astronauts, he discovered that many experienced a radical change in awareness while observing Earth from above. He described it as a sudden mental shift, a realization that the planet's political, religious, and cultural divisions are insignificant when compared to the vastness of the universe and the fragility of our homeworld. From space, Earth appears as a small, unified biosphere, one with no visible borders, floating alone in a sea of darkness. According to White, this new perspective often sparks feelings of empathy, responsibility, and a desire to care for and protect our world. One of the most famous examples of this shift occurred during the Apollo 8 mission in 1968, when astronauts took the iconic Earthrise photograph. For the first time, humanity saw its home from beyond the atmosphere, a solitary, luminous sphere suspended in the void. This image resonated deeply and helped ignite the global environmental movement, inspiring people to recognize how closely linked all life on Earth truly is. To grasp the emotional impact of this experience, consider this analogy. Imagine living your entire life in a tiny village, believing it to be the entire world. Your views and concerns are shaped entirely by life within its borders. Then one day you climb a mountain and see not just your village, but countless others, stretching into the distance alongside rivers and forests. The worries of your village suddenly seem smaller, and you begin to understand that you are part of something much bigger. In the same way, the orbital perspective shift is like scaling that mountain, except instead of other villages, you see all of humankind together on a solitary, fragile planet. Astronauts often say that this moment permanently changes their values and sense of meaning. It instills a powerful sense of duty to protect Earth and fosters an urge to promote harmony, peace, and sustainability. Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who flew aboard Apollo 14, referred to it as a sudden awareness of Earth's interconnected web of life, a global consciousness that awakened in him as he saw the planet from space. He described feeling a strong dissatisfaction with the problems of the world and an urgent desire to help solve them. After his mission, he became an outspoken supporter of environmental preservation and sustainable living. Beyond emotional and environmental impact, the orbital perspective shift also raises profound questions about identity and existence. From space, the distinctions that separate people, such as nationality, race, or religion, fade away, leaving only a shared home and a common humanity. This unity challenges the usual way we define ourselves, expanding identity beyond local or cultural boundaries. It encourages us to see ourselves simply as inhabitants of Earth, not as members of tribes or nations, but as stewards of a shared destiny. The insights of the orbital perspective shift are not limited to astronauts. They hold relevance for everyone. While most of us may never travel to space, we can still cultivate this broader worldview by studying images of Earth from space, connecting with nature, and learning about how life systems depend on each other. Doing so can help us nurture the same feelings of interconnectedness and care. This shift calls for a change in mindset, from me to we. It's about realizing that our individual actions ripple outward, impacting the entire ecosystem we all rely on. In an era of increasing environmental threats, political strife, and social divisions, the orbital perspective reminds us to rise above and see the bigger picture. Earth is our shared sanctuary, and its fate is directly tied to our own. Adopting this perspective can lead to choices rooted in empathy, mindfulness, and responsibility for both people and planet. By understanding the orbital perspective shift, we gain more than insight into the minds of astronauts. We gain a clear and urgent reminder of our unity, our shared journey, and the delicate vessel we all call home. Ultimately, it's a call for every one of us to live with heightened awareness and deeper compassion, recognizing that in this immense universe, we are all riding together on the same fragile spaceship. The illusion of being watched. Imagine stepping into a bustling cafe only to realize you've accidentally dripped a bit of coffee on your crisp white shirt. Your pulse quickens, and you suddenly feel like all eyes in the room are fixed on you, evaluating, judging, zeroing in on that tiny brown stain as if it were glowing under a spotlight. In your mind, you're now the star of a show you never auditioned for. But that intense focus, it's mostly in your head. This phenomenon is known as the illusion of being watched, or what psychologists call the spotlight effect. It refers to our tendency to exaggerate how much other people notice or pay attention to us, whether it's our slip-ups or our achievements. It's like we're all walking around with a mental zoom lens on ourselves, forgetting that everyone else is doing the same. The term spotlight effect was first introduced by researchers Thomas Gilovich and Kenneth Savitsky in 1999, but the idea has existed as long as people have been self-aware. In one influential study, college students were asked to wear a rather awkward t-shirt featuring a large image of singer Barry Manilow into a room full of peers. Before entering, they guessed that about 50% of the others would notice the shirt. In truth, only about 25% did. Why does this disconnect occur? Think of it this way. You're the main character in the movie of your life. Everything you feel, every embarrassment or small win, plays out center stage in your mind. But the catch is, everyone else is starring in their own film, with their own drama and distractions. While you're stressing over a stain or a misstep, they're likely preoccupied with their own insecurities and worries. Let's bring this idea to life with a real example. Sarah, a confident public speaker, once slightly tripped over her words during a presentation. That moment haunted her for days. She was convinced it had ruined the entire talk and that it's all her audience remembered. But when she asked them later, no one even noticed the stumble. They remembered her message and energy, not the minor hiccup she couldn't forget. The spotlight effect reveals something both humbling and freeing. We're simultaneously more central and less significant than we believe. We matter deeply in our own story, but we don't take up nearly as much space in others' minds as we imagine. It's not indifference. It's that everyone is dealing with their own internal spotlight, just like we are. Realizing this can be a source of tremendous relief. That awkward pause in your last meeting, it's likely been forgotten. That fashion faux pas from last week, probably unnoticed. The spotlight effect is like a personal magnifying glass. What looks huge and glaring to us is often invisible to others. and that awareness can loosen the grip of self-criticism. This doesn't mean we should stop striving to present ourselves well or contribute meaningfully. Instead, it's a reminder to offer ourselves more kindness, to realize that the imaginary stage lights we feel aren't always shining on us. As you lie in bed tonight, try letting go of the invisible spotlight. Just as the stars in the night sky gleam with no concern for who's looking, you too can move through life with a little less self-judgment and a lot more grace. The spotlight effect is just that, an effect, not a reality. And when we understand it for what it is, we grant ourselves permission to be wonderfully, imperfectly human. The mirror of meaning. You strongly desire approval and appreciation from others, yet at the same time, you often judge yourself quite harshly. While you acknowledge having certain flaws in your character, you believe you're generally successful in managing or balancing them. You also possess a significant amount of untapped potential that you haven't fully utilized to your advantage. Does this description feel strikingly accurate? Are you nodding as if someone just read your inner thoughts aloud? If so, you've just encountered a curious psychological tendency known as the Barnum effect, a mental shortcut where people interpret general, vague statements as personally insightful and tailored specifically to them, when in truth, such descriptions could easily apply to almost anyone. This mental trick is named after P.T. Barnum, the famous entertainer and entrepreneur who once claimed, "There's a sucker born every minute." The Barnum effect is like a deceptive mirror. It reflects back what you want or expect to see, not necessarily what's real. Imagine stepping into a carnival's funhouse full of mirrors. Each one seems to show a unique version of you, but in fact they're just subtle variations of the same image, each tailored just enough to feel personal. To better understand this, consider a well-known study from 1948 by psychologist Bertram Forer. He gave his students a personality quiz, promising an individualized analysis based on their responses. A week later, he handed each student their personal results. They were then asked to rate the accuracy of the description on a scale of 0 to 5. The average rating? A surprising 4.26 out of 5, suggesting they felt the analysis was highly accurate. The catch? Every student received the exact same description. This phenomenon explains why horoscopes can feel so eerily spot on, why psychics seem to know us so well, and why certain personality tests feel like they're reading our minds. It's like being handed a master key that just happens to open your door, because it opens nearly all of them. The Barnum effect works for a couple of reasons. First, we're naturally wired for confirmation bias. We seek and remember information that supports what we already believe. Like a detective who's already chosen a suspect, we subconsciously filter details to confirm our self-image. Second, these descriptions often contain dual-sided statements. For instance, you're outgoing and friendly, but you sometimes enjoy being alone. Both halves are true for most people, even though they seem opposite, like describing fire as both warm and capable of going out. You've probably seen this at work in online quizzes. Which mythical creature are you? Or what type of leader are you? These quizzes succeed because they're crafted to be wide enough to include everyone, but wrapped in just enough specificity to feel deeply personal. It's like putting on a one-size-fits-all sweater that's marketed as custom design just for you. But realizing the Barnum effect is at play isn't about becoming skeptical of everything. Instead, it helps us become more discerning, more thoughtful about how we interpret personality descriptions and feedback. It's like learning to read a map that not only points out your path, but also warns you where the illusions might lie. The real beauty lies in understanding this. Although we share countless traits and experiences as human beings, it's our individual stories and decisions that transform these shared traits into something uniquely our own. Many people worry about what tomorrow holds, but the hopes and fears you carry are distinctly yours. As you reflect on this,
Think about how your awareness of the Barnum effect might change how you read horoscopes, receive compliments, or take personality quizzes. Perhaps true self-awareness doesn't come from generalized universal truths, but from the vivid, personal moments that shape your one-of-a-kind journey.
The Memory Mirage. Imagine a strange mental glitch where countless individuals vividly recall an event or detail that never actually happened. This puzzling occurrence is known as the Mandela effect. It refers to situations where large numbers of people share the same incorrect memory, as if we're all following slightly altered versions of a universal script. The phrase was introduced by Fiona Broome in 2009, when she realized that thousands of people, including herself, distinctly remembered Nelson Mandela dying during his imprisonment in the 1980s. But in reality, Mandela was freed in 1990 and lived until 2013. This false but widespread memory prompted deeper exploration into the phenomenon of collective memory errors. Think of your memory like a sprawling archive, with each volume co-authored by countless people. In this vast mental library, the writers sometimes unintentionally alter each other's narratives, merging truths and fabrications into a convincing version of events. It's similar to playing a game of telephone, except instead of whispered phrases, its memories pass between millions of minds. Let's dive into a few famous examples. Consider the well-known Monopoly mascot. Many people are certain he wears a monocle. He doesn't. That detail is an invention of our shared imagination. Or take the Fruit of the Loom logo. A huge number of people recall a cornucopia behind the fruit, yet no such horn was ever part of the logo. It's like we all remember seeing a piece of artwork that in reality never existed. Why do we remember things this way? Psychologists point to several interesting theories. One is confabulation, our brain's habit of filling in missing pieces of a memory with plausible details, just as a restorer might enhance a faded photograph with imagined touches. Another explanation is social validation. When many people recall an event the same way, even incorrectly, we're more likely to trust that memory. It becomes a collective certainty, even if it's false. It's like a group recalling a trip together, each reinforcing the other's version of the story, even if it's slightly off. Some thinkers offer more unusual explanations. Perhaps alternate timelines exist, or reality itself has tiny glitches. While these theories stretch into science fiction, they reflect a deep desire to explain the mismatch between shared belief and objective fact. What the Mandela effect reveals is profound. Memory is not a perfect recorder. It's more like an impressionist painting, capturing the mood and essence of a moment, not its exact details. Each time we revisit a memory, we aren't simply accessing it, we're rebuilding it, often with minor changes we don't notice. And maybe the most intriguing part? These shared inaccuracies bring us together. False memories like these are woven into our collective culture, uniting us in the strangest of ways. It's as though we're all gazing at the same sky, yet each of us connects the stars into slightly different patterns. So as you prepare to rest tonight, think about your own memories. How many might differ just a little from what truly happened? And does it really matter? Maybe the true value of memory lies not in flawless precision, but in the common humanity it expresses, the shared stories and emotional truths that link us all in the experience of living. The frequency filter illusion. Have you ever purchased a new vehicle and suddenly started spotting that exact make and model everywhere? Or learned an unfamiliar term only to find it popping up in every article, book, or conversation? If so, you've encountered what's known as the Baader-Meinhof effect, also referred to as frequency illusion, a captivating trick of the mind where our awareness sharpens around something newly noticed, making it seem as if it's suddenly everywhere. Picture your consciousness as a boundless sea teeming with information, countless ideas and impressions swimming past every second. Most of these details drift by unnoticed, But once something catches your focus, like a vivid, unusual fish, suddenly similar fish start appearing all around you. The actual number hasn't increased, but your brain is now fine-tuned to spot them. The effect got its odd name in 1994, when someone reading a newspaper noticed the term Bader Meinhof twice in a short span. After mentioning this strange coincidence to others, they too began seeing the term frequently, ironically providing the perfect demonstration of the phenomenon itself. Behind the scenes, two key mental mechanisms drive this effect. The first is selective attention, like an internal spotlight that begins highlighting anything tied to our current interest. The second is confirmation bias, our natural tendency to focus on information that validates what we already believe while ignoring details that don't. Here's a story that brings the idea to life. Sarah, a student of fine arts, once discovered a relatively obscure technique called chiaroscuro, which uses dramatic contrast between light and shadow. In the days that followed, she began seeing examples of it everywhere, from photographs and movie posters to the way morning sunlight struck her dining table. The artistic style hadn't become more common. Instead, her perception had simply changed. Her mind had developed a new filter for reality. This effect isn't just about recognizing patterns, it offers a profound insight into how we build our perception of the world. Consider how many times you've walked down your street without noticing birdsong, only for those sounds to suddenly become clear after someone points them out. The birds were always there. Your awareness just hadn't tuned in. The Baader-Meinhof effect reminds us that what we perceive is not an exact replica of the world, but a carefully edited version, tailored by our focus and expectations. Think of your mind as a masterful audio engineer, adjusting levels and emphasizing some frequencies while letting others fade softly into the background. This quirky trait of perception has real-world applications. Advertisers, for instance, know that once a brand grabs your interest, it will seem like it's suddenly everywhere, creating the illusion of popularity or importance. Politicians use this too. Once an idea is introduced, their followers start noticing proof of it all around them. Even in personal growth, once we learn a new concept or perspective, we start finding supporting evidence in places we'd never have noticed before. But beyond the science, there's a beautiful takeaway. This phenomenon reveals just how rich and layered our world is, infinitely more detailed than we often realize. Every shift in attention is like switching radio stations, revealing new frequencies we hadn't tuned into before. By understanding the Baader-Meinhof effect, we gain more control over how we experience our lives. It encourages us to be mindful about where we place our attention and to stay curious about the patterns we might otherwise miss. What else might come into focus if we slightly altered what we pay attention to? As you ease into rest tonight, consider what your mind has been spotlighting lately and what fresh patterns or ideas might emerge tomorrow. The world remains full of wonder, even in the most routine surroundings. The real magic lies not just in noticing this effect, but in embracing how it enriches our daily perception, turning the ordinary into something extraordinary, one shift in awareness at a time. Assume error, not ill intent. The phrase known as Hanlon's razor might sound a bit blunt at first, but within it lies a powerful insight, one that can reshape the way you interpret people's actions and intentions. Picture this. You're eagerly awaiting a crucial email from a colleague. Hours go by, then days. Your thoughts start spiraling. Are they ignoring me on purpose? Trying to derail my work? Talking about me behind my back? But eventually, you uncover the truth. They had simply mistyped your email address. This straightforward situation perfectly demonstrates Hanlon's razor in motion. Attributed to Robert J. Hanlon, though its roots reach further back in history, This principle acts like a mental scalpel, cutting through our instinct to assign malicious intent where simple mistakes or oversight may be the real cause. Think of Hanlon's razor as a unique pair of corrective lenses, ones that strip away the fog of suspicion and help us view situations with greater clarity and fairness. Let's dig a little deeper with an example. Sarah, a software engineer, spent weeks convinced that one of her teammates was sabotaging her contributions to a project. She built up elaborate narratives involving office politics and envy, but the actual explanation? Her colleague was grappling with undiagnosed ADHD, unintentionally making errors while trying to keep up. Once Sarah viewed the situation through the lens of Hanlon's razor, everything shifted, from defensiveness to compassion. So, why is it that we so often assume the worst? The answer goes back to our evolutionary wiring. Early humans needed to be hyper-aware of threats. Those who interpreted a rustling bush as a predator instead of wind were more likely to survive. That vigilance still exists within us, but in our modern context, it often misfires. What makes Hanlon's razor so valuable is how useful it can be in everyday life. In workplaces, it can help replace toxic suspicion with understanding and teamwork. In personal relationships, it can stop arguments before they start and promote patience. In general, it can ease stress and remove the emotional weight of assuming someone meant to hurt or disrespect us. Consider a few familiar examples. A friend doesn't reply to your message. Maybe they're just overwhelmed, not upset with you. A car suddenly swerves into your lane. Perhaps the driver is distracted by a personal emergency, not trying to be reckless. A cashier seems short or unfriendly. Maybe they're coping with something heavy you can't see. That said, Hanlon's razor isn't about ignoring real harm or pretending bad behavior doesn't exist. It's not blind optimism. Think of it more as a first response, not a final conclusion. Start by considering incompetence, error, or misunderstanding before you resort to blaming malice. At its core, this idea reflects something deeply human. Most people aren't moving through life with malicious agendas. They're just doing their best, often imperfectly, struggling with challenges you may not know about. That understanding can be incredibly freeing. It lifts the burden of constantly analyzing every interaction for hidden motives. Instead, you allow space for imperfection, both in others and in yourself. Perhaps the greatest gift Hanlon's razor offers is a chance to show others the same patience and forgiveness we hope to receive in return. Haven't we all been in a situation where our accidental mistake was misunderstood as intentional harm? As you wind down and reflect tonight, ask yourself, how many of your current frustrations might soften if you assumed mistake instead of malice? How would your relationship shift if you led with empathy, not suspicion? What if confusion, not cruelty, was your first thought? In applying this simple idea, you may find the world feels less hostile and more compassionate. A place where missteps are just that, missteps. And understanding becomes the starting point, not the exception. Hanlon's razor isn't just a tool for clearer thinking. It's a mindset for a gentler, more humane way of being in the world. Simplicity over speculation. Picture yourself strolling through a quiet meadow when you suddenly hear hoofbeats in the distance. What's more reasonable, assuming it's a horse, or imagining a zebra with a saddle being ridden by a unicorn? This playful scenario sets the stage for understanding one of philosophy's most enduring mental models, Occam's razor. This principle suggests that the best explanation is usually the one with the fewest assumptions. Originally attributed to William of Ockham, a 14th century Franciscan monk, this idea doesn't point us toward the easiest answer, but rather the one that introduces the least amount of extra unsupported ideas. Think of it like trimming a tree. Occam's razor is your logical pruning shears, removing unnecessary branches of thought to reveal the most likely conclusion underneath. Let's illustrate it with a story. A detective arrives at a jewelry store burglary scene. Two theories present themselves. The first, a skilled thief broke in using professional tools and stole the valuables. The second, a covert group of international spies collaborated with extraterrestrials, using teleportation technology to steal the jewels while simultaneously wiping surveillance footage and mind-controlling the security staff. As tempting as the second explanation sounds, full of excitement and intrigue, Occam's razor nudges us toward the first. Why? Because it relies on fewer extraordinary assumptions. But what makes simplicity a more reliable path to truth? Imagine constructing a tower out of playing cards. The more layers and height you add, the more unstable it becomes. Each added card represents a new assumption. The higher the number of assumptions, the more likely it is that the entire structure topples. In reasoning, every added element that must be true makes the whole explanation more fragile and less probable. This way of thinking drastically altered the course of science. Before Copernicus, astronomers explained planetary motion with tangled, complex systems, layer upon layer of circular orbits. Then came Copernicus with a radical yet elegantly simple idea. What if the planets, including Earth, revolve around the sun? His explanation wasn't just clearer, it was more accurate. However, Occam's razor isn't a rigid law. It's a compass, not a cage. There are times when reality is complex. Take quantum physics, for example. The behavior of subatomic particles often defies common logic. In such cases, complexity is justified, but only when no simpler explanation can account for all the facts. In daily life, this principle can be an invaluable tool for clear thinking. If your phone suddenly shuts off, check whether it's out of battery before panicking about hackers. If a friend misses a meeting, they might simply have forgotten, not been abducted by a shadowy government agency. We're naturally drawn to elaborate theories. They make things feel grander or more significant. There's a strange allure in dramatic stories, even when the truth is simple. But there's a quiet elegance in straightforward explanations too. Finding peace in simplicity is deeply satisfying. Let's apply this to real-world examples. A strange light in the sky. Before calling it a UFO, consider airplanes or satellites. Feeling unwell? Rule out common illnesses before jumping to rare diseases. A sudden promotion? It might just be your dedication and skill, not a mysterious office scheme or luck. Occam's razor does more than lead us toward truth. It often spares us the stress that comes from inventing overly complicated fears or fantasies. It reminds us that not everything needs a tangled backstory. Sometimes, the reality is clear and right in front of us. No twists needed. As your day winds down and you prepare to rest, think about this. How many of your current worries depend on complex chains of assumption? What if the solution is simpler than you thought? By adopting Occam's razor, we not only sharpen our thinking, we often find a smoother way forward in life. In a world that often glorifies complexity, there's quiet strength in choosing clarity, because more often than not, truth doesn't wear a disguise. It's simply waiting to be seen. The birthright lottery concept picture. For a moment that before your arrival into this world, you were handed an otherworldly lottery ticket. This ticket wouldn't just decide who you would become, but also where you'd enter life, to which family, in which time period, under what conditions, and with what chances. This idea is known as the birthright lottery concept, a deep philosophical notion that questions our ideas about fairness, merit, destiny, and justice. Think about this. You never chose to be born in your nation, to your particular parents, with your unique genetic traits, or during this exact century. You didn't select your native tongue, your early schooling, or the cultural beliefs that shaped your upbringing. Every foundational aspect of your identity began as the roll of a cosmic dice. Imagine arriving at a theater where the play is already underway. You didn't choose the script, the setting, or your character. You simply found yourself on the stage. expected to act your part. Some step into bright spotlights with a cheering audience and strong support, while others enter a shadowy corner with scarce resources. This theory carries deep consequences for how we interpret success, failure, and human potential. Warren Buffett himself acknowledged this when he spoke about winning the birth lottery, being born male, white, and in 20th century America, with access to opportunities that most of humanity throughout history never had. He understood that although skill and hard work played their roles, his success rested on a foundation he neither earned nor chose. Let's explore this through a thought exercise. Picture a child born in a remote village without electricity, clean water, or schooling. Now imagine another child born into a wealthy family in a developed country, with access to top-tier education, healthcare, and opportunities. Both children may share equal inherent potential, yet their paths will almost certainly diverge, shaped by forces far beyond their control. This theory challenges the usual stories we tell about merit and achievement. Personal effort, dedication, and decisions matter greatly, but they operate within the limits set by the birth lottery. It's like being dealt cards in poker. Skill influences how you play, but your initial hand heavily impacts your chance to win. This insight has revolutionary implications for how we think about society and justice. If so much of our social standing depends on luck rather than choice, what does that mean for how we treat each other? How should it influence laws, policies, and the judgments we make about those less privileged? Consider education. A child born in Silicon Valley to tech executives has vastly different learning opportunities than a child born in a conflict zone or a poor neighborhood. Neither child earned their starting point. They simply won or lost a lottery they never signed up for. The theory also encourages us to view privilege not as a source of guilt, but as a recognition and possibly a duty to help create pathways for those who started with fewer advantages. If you've been fortunate in the birth lottery, your privilege may carry a responsibility to uplift others. This viewpoint nurtures both humility and empathy. When we truly grasp that none of us chose our starting circumstances, it becomes harder to condemn others for theirs. The phrase, "but for the grace of fortune go I," moves beyond cliche. It becomes a fundamental truth about our shared human experience. Yet, this theory isn't meant to encourage fatalism or excuse personal accountability. Instead, it highlights the complex dance between circumstance and choice. While we cannot pick our beginning, we can decide what to do with what we have. As you reflect on this concept, think about how it might shift your perspective on others. The homeless person on the street, the refugee seeking safety, or the child born into affluence. Each plays a game with cards dealt at birth, a game none of them chose to enter. Understanding this can inspire a more compassionate, fair outlook, one that acknowledges how luck and situation shape our successes and struggles. It reminds us that although we don't control where life starts, we can control how we treat those who began elsewhere.